Hey, this is Professor Game, where we interview successful practitioners of games, gamification, and game thinking who bring us the best of their experiences to get ideas, insights, and inspiration that help us in the process of getting our students to learn what we teach. And I am Rob Alvarez. I'm the founder of Professor Game and professor of gamification and games-based solutions at IE Business School, EFMD, EBS University, and many other places around the world. And if this content is for you, then please go ahead and subscribe to our email list for free at professorgame.com/subscribe. And welcome once again, engagers, to the Professor Game podcast. And we have Cristobal with us today. But Cristobal, we need to know, are you prepared to engage?
Yeah, 100%. I'm ready.
Let's do this. And Cristobal, let's do this a little bit differently today. How about you introduce yourself? What's your background? What do you do? What have you been doing in the last few years?
Well, first I want to thank you because you pronounce my name pretty good. And that's something that it doesn't happen to me often. So thank you for that. Well, my name is Cristobal Figueroa. I'm a Chilean living in Melbourne. I have been traveling the world for like 6 or 7 years. I live in Berlin. I have lived in an island. And yeah, in Melbourne, Australia, I found my house, my home. I have been living here for 4 years. I start to develop all this idea of this game here in Melbourne, which is Australia is a country of great opportunities. So yeah, I'm happy living here and trying to change the world.
Amazing. And you mentioned, the idea you're working on. But before you get to that, we would like to know, what does a day with you look like? What are you doing nowadays, Cristobal? We want to be there with you to understand what is your life all about.
Okay. So I wake up around 6 or 6:30, and then I will get my cold shower, which is something that I started to do recently, and it's good. Like, I don't know if you do it. I will recommend it to try it because I feel that it's the first win of the day. Like, no one wants to have a cold shower, but after that, I got a good shower, I do some push-ups, get some coffee, try to meditate or go to nature, and then get in the computer. Or depends. Sometimes I have to work in other stuff. Some days I work in the business. Sometimes I have to work I also do a support worker. So it depends. Every day it's a little bit different for me. But usually I jump into the computer and I start to work. I'm fasting as well, so I will eat at 3 or 4 p.m. So today, for example, I have been fasting for more than 48 hours, which is good. So I will work until 5 to 6 and then go to the gym or go to events or see some family, friends. And then, go to bed at 10, 11.
Amazing. So you're doing also the fasting initiative until 3 or 4 p.m.?
Yes. Every day I fast for, at least 16 hours. And it's getting a habit, I'm in the mood to try to get the best of myself. So I have been reading a lot. And one of the techniques, it is stress your body. So you stress your body through fasting or through exercise or through the cold shower. So that I have felt the change since I start to do this kind of practice. And I will try to recommend it to everyone to try it because, fasting is not for everyone, but one step at a time.
Amazing. So Cristobal, how about we actually go into the meat of these questions and start by one of the strong ones that we always love to have, because this both helps us learn a lot from our guests and also helps us humanize our amazing guests like you, Cristobal. So can you tell us a story about a time when you had what we like to call a favorite fail or first attempt in learning? Whilst you were doing, some sort of board game, some form of gamification, whatever it is you want to go for, we want to be there with you, feel that, that difficult time, and of course, perhaps know how you got out of it. What did you learn? In general, we want to live that story with you.
Okay, so the game that I'm developing, it's called Family Squad. And I started to develop when COVID hit. So I got selected in an accelerator program. Oh, sorry, it was an incubator program that time. And Yes, my idea was a little bit different, and after a lot of design thinking, I came to the idea with the idea of develop a board game. And actually, a mentor told me that, hey, Chris, develop this, and then you can do different kind of stuff. So I start to develop the game, and the game that I'm developing, it is for families. So like for children from 7+ years old to connect with the family. So we were in lockdown here in Melbourne. We have way too many lockdowns, and I sent one of the prototypes that I did to my mentor, and we did the test through the camera through Zoom, and we did the test, and for me it didn't work. Like, I didn't like it. I was so sad after that. We did the test, the children were running around. So we did the test, and then like a couple of days after, we have another meeting with my mentor at that time, and I told him, no, this is not doing good. I didn't like it. I'm wasting my time, blah, 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 blah. And he was like, hey, Chris, wait. I like what I saw. Like, it is the first prototype. You are starting. This is something that you have to develop over time. It's all right that you feel that you expected something maybe better, but it's a beautiful first step. And then I realized that that is true, like, because we are anxious, we want to have everything now. And that specific moment, it helped me to, in all the next failures, to be more resilient, to learn, to iterate faster, and to try to get the best of each experience and improve, and don't get too frustrated if something doesn't happen, because things are meant to not happen sometimes. And then we have to find a way to try to fix it or to make it work. So I would say that experience, because I have the image in my head, like I have it there, like when the children weren't engaging with the game, but they engaged at the end. Yeah, I felt really bad that time.
So it was perhaps more than a failure itself. It was kind of a failure of, I don't know, I don't want to call it expectations, because it wasn't actually exact expectations, but of understanding what the feedback that you were receiving was happening, or of resilience. I don't know. What do you think when I say something like that?
I think it's true because, well, technically the game, it didn't went or it didn't go as I expected or as I should go. But yeah, probably I had
Okay.
more expectation of that because it was the first time that I was testing the game. Also, I don't know, during COVID, being in lockdown, a lot of emotion were like inside of us. So, so maybe that's what I don't know, that didn't help me a little bit. But yeah, I wouldn't say that I have like bigger failures during the process of developing the family squad, because everything is a process of learning, right? I really believe in that, in being resilient, in learning and iterating fast as a philosophy of life, like fail faster. So I wouldn't say it wasn't a big failure, but for me, at that time, it felt like a failure, and for a short period of time, let's say. It was a failure for like 3 or 4 days because my mentor, I was lucky that he was my mentor, and he was by my side at the same time. So he called me up. He like hugged me, virtual hug. And he was like, Chris, it's not that bad. Like, breathe, take a step back, start again.
Gotcha. Sounds good. And in that same sort of line of hearing that story and seeing what things happened and what lessons you took away, can you tell us a story of actually the opposite? Something that you would say it's kind of a proud moment, one of those things that was a big challenge and you solved it using games.
So I will say that when I start to develop this idea, my main goal was always saying that when the game is done, if the children look to the mom or look to the father and hug them and say, thank you, mom, for this, that's what I want. That's my goal. Like, I want to spark that, like, through the different experience that I'm going to develop. But that was always has been my goal. And when I test the game, every time that happened, not specifically holding or like, but the love, like sharing the love, like sharing the beautiful words, and you can felt it. So for me, it has been always my goal that like created that kind of moment or helping to create that kind of moment in families. So I would say that it's my biggest motor when because sometimes are hard, some days are harder than other ones, and some days you don't want to keep doing it. But that's something that keep me always in track, like saying, Chris, you are doing this because of this moment. And every time, even though sometimes the test doesn't work or doesn't go as you expected, that moment is always created. So for me, it's something beautiful and push me to keep going. So I don't know if I don't know if I answered to you, yes, if I respond to your question, but I wanted to
And
share
what would you
that.
say, like, how would you say you got to that? Is there any kind of key lessons you take away from that, or things that you did that you think actually worked really well?
So I can tell you why I wanted to try to create that moment. So it's my personal background. Like my grandfather, he helped a lot of people back in Chile. He built a lot of social housing. So when he was he was an architect. He passed away last year, and yeah, I mentioned him because I love him. And he was an architect. He went to Israel to build social housing. So he saw that the men, when before having a physical place, they were drinking, not spending time with the family. But then when they have a physical place, they start to spend more time with the family. So therefore, the family start to develop, the society start to develop as well. So he trespassed that kind of knowledge to me. So I got that, and for me, I went a little bit further, and I say, okay, if we want to change the world, if we want to create a better society, we have to strengthen the family bonds, because that's the core of every society. And that's what I'm trying to do with this game.
Sounds amazing. It sounds like you actually got the key to exactly what you were looking for, right?
Kind of. And actually, yeah, that's something like another kind of beautiful moment. But I was testing the game with some friends, with like everyone like 30 years old. We tested the game, was everything good? And then we went for some beers. And after getting a little bit drunk, one of my friends came to me and he hugged me and he was like, bro, I really like the game. It was amazing how three people of 30 years old, we connect and we engage in that room. And that like made me a click. And it was like, wow, that's the meaning of Family Squad. And also it's like kind of my gift. I like to connect. I like to connect people, to connect with people, to connect ideas. So yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know if I answered your question, but
Makes sense. Makes sense. So, Cristobal, after all of this experience you've had with this game that you've developed, would you say that you have some, like, again, actually, if you were going to do this over again, you were going to create another game, would you say that you've developed some form of a process or something that you could sort of replicate, that you could tell us, like, oh yeah, if you're going to develop a board game, you could actually be doing something like this?
I would say that something that I also take as a philosophy in life, like I always try to break down a concept or an action and try to understand every part of that concept. So I use what I really need, not the whole concept, but a specific point, and then I add it to the thing that I'm creating. So I'm becoming better doing that. And for the next game or for the next experience that I'm going to develop, it's going to be better than this one. Like, because I will have the experience, I will have the knowledge. There are more tools now. I'm connecting with more people. But yeah, I would say that like breaking down to try to understand the problems, breaking down the action, the solutions, and then start to work from that point. So I would say like sometimes it's better go back a couple steps and then in order to go forward.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And how would you, again, if you were starting over, how would that look like in practice? And in one of the times you were trying something like that, does that make sense if I ask you that question? Like, well, first I would look for this, and then I would do this other thing.
Well, first I will try to understand the problem by myself, doing some research. Then I will go to speak with the people. So like, for example, with Family Squad, I spoke a lot with parents, and I realized that many times parents, specifically fathers, they don't engage in the activities that children does. So for example, you go to sports and the children is doing the sport, the father is like waiting by the side. Or sometimes they don't want to engage in like birthday of stuff like that. So I got that and I tried to solve that through the game. So something that I create something that is engaging and fun for everyone in the family. So I would say that like, yes, try to understand the problem, then go, well, do of course a lot of research, go and speak with a lot of people and try to understand really the problem and how do you can help them, and then try to develop something. Sometimes you can create something that or improve something that already had been created, and then test it and test it and test it and test it and improve from that point.
Sounds great. Sounds great. Thank you for sharing your process, Cristobal.
Just a quick break before we continue with this episode. If you've been enjoying this podcast, I would really appreciate if you share it with your friends and family and on social media. On Twitter and Instagram, it's at RobAlvarezB and the hashtag ProfessorGame, all one word. And in Facebook, you can find the Professor Game page. Thanks in advance for your engagement.
And Cristobal, again, with the experience that you've had at this point, I'm sure you've made also some research and so on. Would you say that when using games for a purpose, as you have done with Family Squad, is there some form of a best practice, something that you do and perhaps it will make at least whatever you're creating a little bit better?
I would say that create a story. So like make the people feel that, engage the people through the story, like be that storytelling where the people can engage. And then especially what I'm trying to do is like trying to create magic. So the people get engaged, something that it surprise everyone. And I would say that it's one of the resources that I have used, because try to keep everyone surprise everyone, try to engage, that everyone feel like comfortable and sharing and like willing to participate in the story of the game. But yeah, I would say that like that create a story, which is hard, because if you think like, let's say we are creative people that trying to develop board game, we're working with human behaviors. So we're trying to predict what the people is doing or what the people is going to do. So it is a little bit complicated. So again, if you can try to, by predicting those behaviors, like creating a story and make the people feel, which is really important, that like if people forget what do you say with them or what you do with them, but they will never forget what they feel. So I would say that will be my advice, make the people feel and getting engaged with the product that you're designing.
So considering what people are going to feel with whatever it is that you're creating. Does that make sense?
Yes. Make the people feel.
Amazing. That makes a lot of sense. So Cristobal, you mentioned that you've been a listener of the podcast for a while, so you kind of know how this works in general, the podcast. You also know many of the guests that we've had. There's many things that you already know, so you have sort of an advantage in that sense over other guests. Is there somebody that you say, well, I've heard all these people that you've heard, and however, I would be really curious or interested in hearing from this other person. So sort of a future guest for Professor Game Podcast.
I also have to say that I connect with a few people that I listen to your podcast, and they help me. And well, I don't know, like if I can take the moment to encourage the people who are starting and go and ask to someone that has been in the podcast. Everyone is really nice, or my experience. And yeah, when you are starting, you are a little bit afraid to think. You think that you are less than there, or they have done so much. But everyone is welcoming, or everyone is super nice. Like I spoke with, I'm really bad with names, but Melzer, I think was the name. He helped me a lot. So yeah, sorry, that was one point. But yeah, I will recommend to interview Jess Londieu. She was my teacher, and she's developing like a game to try to reflect on yourself and journaling, which is really important. So it is kind of gamification. I will call it a gamification of yourself and trying to understand yourself, trying to understand your emotions, why you are feeling that emotions, and be aware of that. And she developed this card that I think you can get it. So yeah, I will be curious to have, if you have her in the podcast.
Amazing. You'll hopefully give us then the contact details so to see if we can have her in the future for sure. That would be super, super interesting.
100%.
Cristobal, I'm sure you've read plenty of books before getting into this world. Is there one of those books that you would say, if the engagers read this book, they'd probably be at least better off, or they could be inspired, or anything in between? What book would you recommend?
So I would say two. One related with board design, or game board, and the other one related with a little bit of understanding yourself. So the first one, I will recommend Creativity Inc., which is a book created by Ed Catmull. He was the president of Pixar and Disney Animation. So they speak a lot about the creativity process that they have in this huge institution and business, right? So it is. They also give a lot of knowledge about how to build a culture of creativity, how to prompt that. So for me, it helped me a lot. It gave me like a lot of vision of what I want to develop and what I want to create and the impact that I want to have in the world and how to do it. And also for us, again, that we are designing or like we are creative people, creativity is key for everything. For me, creativity can change the world. So if you can read the book, it's really nice. And the other one that I will recommend, it is about breaking the habit of being yourself from Joe Dispenza. It's a really, really interesting book because it talk about like understanding what happened in your brain with the emotions, with your feelings, with your thought, how to change that. And again, we are working with human behavior, so we have to try to understand how the brain works. So I try to read this kind of book to try to complement what I'm doing.
That sounds like an amazing book, amazing couple of books as well. So thank you for those recommendations, Cristobal. We've talked about a lot of people, including future guests, including, of course, the authors of the books that you recommended. However, we would like to know about you. What would you say is your superpower in this world of creating games with a purpose, creating games that do great things? What is it about you that makes you at least special?
I would say, and it is connection. I connect. As I said before, I have like a kind of a superpower of connecting with people in deeper levels. I don't need much time to understand people and connect with them from my heart. So I also, the way that I think, it is like discomposing or breaking down concept, and then I pick what I need, and then I connect with another point, and then I start to build from there. And I connect people between them. So, and it's also what the game does. So this is something for me, it's beautiful. And I'm kind of proud of me about this because I would say that my gift, it is connecting, and it is what the family squad does. It is connect families, connect players. And yeah, I discovered my gift after like a long process because I had been broken down. And then I master my craft and I create this. So I would say my special gift is connecting.
Sounds like a very good gift, especially given what you are doing in this world with your board game.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And Cristobal, difficult one, and of course, Family Squad is the only cheat answer we will not allow. What would you say is your favorite game? Of course, right next to Family Squad.
Look, I have to be really honest, and I know this question, but I can't lie to you, and I would say my favorite game is football. It's soccer, because I love it, and yeah, I have to say soccer. But then I really like, I can tell you another like kind of a board game that I like Catan, for example. But football, it is what it made me really happy. Also, I did my ACL doing soccer, so it's like a hate and love at the same time.
So I'm guessing, being Chilean with the recent World Cup, you're not very happy with those results, are you?
Boy, let's keep talking about board games.
big rivals, big rivalry.
No, but I was happy because for Argentina, of course, I have a lot of Argentinian friends, and they deserve it. And I'm happy that the Cup stayed in South America, so I was supporting from them. But if we can come back a little bit from the games, I would like to give kind of an advice or something that I do every day. It is kind of a game. So my sister advised me to set up the alarm every day at the same time. So my alarm will go at 10 p.m. every day. And I have to say 3 things that I'm grateful for the day. And I think it's a beautiful exercise. Or let's say it's a beautiful game because it changes your perspective. Like sometimes you are having a really bad day, but there is always something for being grateful for. And that can help you to go to bed like smiling and being grateful for stuff that sometimes you take for granted. So yeah, I will encourage to the people listening, do this game. We'll set up the alarm and be grateful.
Sounds like a very, very good one. I think I've mentioned this before. Having our daughter, she's 6 months old by the time of this interview. We used to do this every single night. My wife and I, we said, well, we have to say 3 new things that we're grateful for every night before we go to sleep. Right now, sleep schedule is it's a bit of a mess in many ways. So, and we, she's been sleeping in the same room as we have, so we don't want to wake her up by doing this. But it is a practice that I definitely recommend. I love doing that thing because it does change a little bit the perspective. I'm not going to say you're not angry about the things you're angry anyways, because you are. You're still going to be angry if something sort of upset you during the day, etc., etc. But it does help you give a new perspective, especially when you're about to go to sleep, and that that time when your body is relaxed and your mind can sort of flow away. You don't want it to be floating away into the negative direction, and that at least helps steer the wind a little bit.
Yes, yeah, sure. I completely agree. So yeah, I will encourage again to the listeners to do it.
Great recommendation. So Cristobal, before we finish the interview, of course, we want to know if you have any more final advice for the engagers, where you want to lead us to, or anything else you want to comment before we take off.
Well, my advice, it will be to try it and don't think of what is going to happen. Just go and try and create an experience. Like everything in life is a process of learning. So many times we don't want to try new stuff because we are afraid of failing or like not being good enough or what the people are going to think. So that will be my advice, to try, and then reach out people, because the world is full of beautiful people that is willing to help. Like in my case, you helped me when like a couple years ago when I contacted you without even expecting anything in return. And I think that's beautiful and I'm grateful for that. So that will be like my advice. And what I wanted to say is I'm going to be launching a crowdfunding campaign on 18th of June, which is my mom's birthday. I will secure it. So I will call to the people listening to the podcast to please help me to support the family squad, because it is a beautiful project. And I really believe my goal, my purpose, it is trying to change the world. And I know that I want to do it, but I can't do it by myself. What the family squad does, it is beautiful. It is connect the families, come back to the roots, have fun, enjoy, have healthy fun, try to use technology as a tool of learning, and come back to engage between us, like look into the eyes, sharing a special moment, like recognizing emotions. It's something that we take for granted now. In this time, families, they think that watching TV is quality time. And it's not. Like, we need to talk each other. We need to come back to the basics, Like, do you remember, Rob, when you were like a children and on Sunday the table was full, or there was a lot of people there and the conversation created that sense of family? I miss it because now I live by myself, and that's something that I wanted to create and give it to the world. So yeah, please support me. Follow me.
We'll certainly have a link to that crowdfunding campaign you're having, Cristobal. So engagers, if you're interested in participating in this, it would be great if you can give a big or small help. They're all, of course, welcome and super useful to Cristobal on getting his family squad game out there in the world. So Cristobal, thank you once again for taking the time to be with us today with the engagers, for sharing your knowledge. I know we are here in Spain. You are over there in Australia. It's must be like 11 or 12 o'clock at night for you. So thank you very much for taking the time and making this effort. However, Cristobal, as you know and the engagers know by now, at least for now and for today, it is time to say that it's game over.
Hey engagers, and thank you for listening to the Professor Game podcast, and I hope you enjoyed this interview with Cristobal. And if you have any questions that you would like to ask future guests, please go ahead to professorgame.com/question and ask that question. Once selected, it'll come up in a future episode and you will get that answer from a guest live during that episode, and he or she will not be aware that question is coming to them. So, it'll be hopefully a very honest and on-the-fly answer as well. So, as we'd like to remind you, before you go on to your next mission, please subscribe or follow, whatever that looks like, on your favorite podcast app, and listen to the next episode of Professor Game. See you there.